Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the second part of the Dorset Council Northern Area Planning Committee on what is turning out to be a very glorious spring afternoon. I'm Councillor Sherry Jesperson and I'm chair of this committee. And my first task here is to take an alphabetical roll call of the members present. So we'll do that. If I call your name, please unmute and indicate that you're present. As usual. Councillor Andrews.
Present.
Councillor Cook.
Present.
Councillor Fry.
Present.
Councillor Hall.
Present.
Councillor Heatley.
Present.
Councillor Jones.
Present.
Councillor Parker.
Here.
Councillor Penfold.
Present.
Councillor Apothecary.
Present.
Councillor Rideout.
Present.
That's lovely. And Councillor Taylor is we still have his apologies for this afternoon. Yes, good, that's fine. Thank you very much indeed. Well, colleagues, we had a very brisk and business-like meeting this morning. Thank you very much indeed for that. Let's hope we can conduct the afternoon in the same business-like way. So our first agenda item this afternoon then is agenda item 5D, and this is to agree a temporary Gypsy and Travellers transit site for a period of 3 years on land adjacent to Piddlehinton Enterprise Park, and the application is from Dorset Council. Hugh Williams, Senior Planning Officer, is to present his report. Hugh, if you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman.
That's lovely, it's there, good.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Chair. There's an application by Dorset Council that proposes the use of land owned by Dorset Council with the application reported to committee in accordance with the provisions of the Council's constitution for such applications. The application proposes the use of pasture land adjacent to the Piddlehinton Enterprise Park as a temporary Gypsy and Traveller transit site. In this and the subsequent 2 years, the use as a caravan site being for the 5-month periods commencing on the 1st of April and ending on the 31st of August in each of the 3 years. Members will appreciate that to support the government's objective of significantly boosting the supply of homes, it is important that a sufficient amount and variety of land can come forward where it is needed, that the needs of groups with specific housing requirements are addressed, and that land with planning permission is developed without unnecessary delay. Amongst other matters, housing delivery should therefore respond to the needs of different groups in the community, including travellers. As noted in the report, a distinction can be drawn between transit and permanent Gypsy and Traveller sites, with a transit pitch being one on which a person is entitled to station a mobile home for a period up to 3 months, and a permanent pitch being a pitch which is not a transit pitch. Transit pitches are therefore specifically provided for short-term occupation. The government's planning policies and requirements for Gypsy and Traveller sites are set out in the 2015 publication Planning Policy for Traveller Sites, that document falling to be read alongside the more recent National Planning Policy Framework, with the content of both documents being material considerations in the determination of planning applications. The overarching aim of government policy for Traveller sites is to ensure fair and equal treatment for travellers in a way that facilitates the traditional and nomadic way of life of travellers whilst respecting the interests of the settled community. The policy encourages local authorities to formulate their own evidence base for Gypsy and Traveller needs and to provide their own targets relating to pitches required. Prior to unification, the local planning authorities in Dorset had agreed to prepare a development plan document for Gypsy and Traveller sites. However, the development plan document did not progress to adoption, and Gypsy and Traveller need is now being addressed through the emerging Dorset Council local plan. The most recent needs assessment indicates a seasonal requirement for approximately 25 transit pitches in Dorset. There are currently no local authority transit sites permitted to operate in Dorset between the 1st of April and the 31st of August, and no other live proposals or site allocations aimed at fully addressing the identified need for transit pitches. A potential consequence of a shortage of authorised pitches is the establishment of unauthorised encampments. Councils and the police have strong powers to deal with unauthorised encampments, but some of the powers available to the police under the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act, enabling them to direct both trespassers and travellers to leave land and remove any vehicle and property from the land, are subject to the availability of a suitable pitch on a caravan site elsewhere in the local authority area. In consequence, authorities that do not ensure the availability of a suitable pitch on a caravan site within their area are in a disadvantaged position for dealing with unauthorised encampments. The government's planning policy for traveller sites makes clear that if a local planning authority cannot demonstrate an up-to-date 5-year supply of deliverable sites, this should be a significant material consideration in any subsequent planning decision when considering applications for the grant of temporary planning permission. The recommendation to grant planning permission today has been made taking into account the current supply position. The application site has a history of seasonal temporary use as a transit caravan site for gypsies and travellers, the previous planning permissions having been granted to meet the needs on a temporary basis, pending production of the now abandoned Gypsy and Traveller Development Plan document. Monitoring data indicates that when the site has been operational in the past, it has been in regular use. Satisfactory means of accessing the application site from the public highway network are available, and there is sufficient space within the application site that vehicular and non-vehicular movement can be accommodated without the provision of additional site infrastructure and without the removal of any existing fencing, trees or other features. The size and nature of the application site is also such that it is readily capable of accommodating 25 caravans in a manner that would provide site occupiers with adequate levels of privacy and sufficient space for parking and informal recreation. Amenity provision within the site is basic, but is considered adequate for the site's intended purpose. A further temporary permission is sought pending production and adoption of the Dorset Council local plan, adoption of the plan currently being scheduled for the spring of 2023. It is therefore likely that the development plan context of the application site will have changed by August 2023, such that the subsequent review of the acceptability of the proposed land use would then be both timely and appropriate. There is no presumption that a temporary grant of planning permission should be granted permanently, such that a further temporary grant of planning permission would be either premature or prejudicial to the ongoing local plan process. Turning to the slides, the planning application site encompasses approximately 2.2 hectares of rough pasture land, this area being referred to in the application report as the application site, together with a roadway access from the B3143. Having climbed from the B3143 to enter the Enterprise Park, the access roadway runs alongside the western boundary of the application site. This section of the roadway, additionally serving some business premises within the Enterprise Park, the Royal School of Signals Army Training Camp to the north of the application site, and also a route through to the Puddletown Rugby Club, which can also be accessed via another route through the Enterprise Park. As already mentioned, the application site historically formed part of the Piddlehinton Army Camp, and has more recently been used as grazing land, and since 2012 intermittently on a seasonal basis and temporary basis as a transit and caravan site for gypsies and travellers. The land is internally divided by a post and wire fence, with development at the Army training camp to the north, a mix of commercial properties to the west and to the south, and open countryside to the west. Beyond the Enterprise Park, there is a permanent gypsy and traveller site alongside the B Road, this being approximately 160 metres from the application site, and the Piddlehinton sewage treatment works, which is approximately 210 metres from the application site. In terms of the development plan context, the application site is not within a defined development boundary, but is adjacent to the Enterprise Park key employment site as defined in the adopted local plan, and the slightly larger employment site defined in the made neighbourhood plan, the adopted local plan allocation being shaded purple and the made neighbourhood plan being outlined in purple, the site sitting just outside here. The site is shown to be wholly within the Poole Harbour nutrient catchment area, with provision for appropriate mitigation to be secured by means of a recommended condition. There are designated heritage assets to the west of the B3143, and the centre of Piddlehinton village is a designated conservation area, with the Dorset area of outstanding natural beauty being located approximately 1 kilometre to the north and west of the application site. Important community facilities are identified in the made neighbourhood plan to include the Piddletown Rugby Club and a gym within the Enterprise Park. Although neither located within a defined development boundary nor allocated for development, given the lack of a 5-year supply of deliverable sites, it is considered that the location of the site provides for an acceptable relationship with existing development and will facilitate adequate access to education, health, welfare and employment infrastructure. The nearest designated heritage assets to the application site are listed buildings located at Muston Manor and scheduled monuments comprising the medieval settlements of Little Piddle and North Levard. Public rights of way comprising a byway and a bridleway are similarly distant to the application site. The 2015 aerial photograph shows the largely agrarian setting of the Enterprise Park, with the village of Piddlehinton to the northwest. And in closer view, gives an impression of the character of the site, with scattered trees in the eastern section and pockets of or pasture grassland interspersed with pockets of scrub elsewhere. This is a more recently taken photograph showing the access to the Enterprise Park from the B3143. A number of representations have made reference to the provision and operation of CCTV cameras within the Enterprise Park. There are various cameras within the Enterprise Park, at least 2 of which I understand are council-operated installations used to monitor vehicular movement and activity on the roads within the Enterprise Park. At the time this picture was taken, I think back at the start of February, there was a camera attached to a pole visible toward the site entrance that was non-operational, and other cameras attached to a pole at the top of the access, at the top of the initial section of the access roadway. I'm afraid I'm not sure precisely which cameras are the Dorset Council cameras, but I understand that 2 new cameras have recently been installed within the park, both of which are now operational. For the reasons set out in my report, in my opinion, it is not necessary for the provision and operation of CCTV cameras to be a conditional requirement of planning permission for the proposed development. The next view shows the first section of the enterprise park, rising to the initial employment units beyond signage, adjacent to which this photograph was taken, with the application site in the centre of the view, and commercial premises to the south and to the west. There is another pole with CCTV cameras adjacent to this signage. Those cameras directed at the roadway, at the adjacent roadways. This is a view from the top of the hill adjacent to the application site, looking back down to the location of the previous images. The application site can be seen to be elevated above the roadway, with a broken hedgerow along parts of the field boundary. This shot is taken from a similar location, but this time looking south towards the gated entrance into the application site. And this shot looking northwest back towards the gate. Beyond the gateway, there's a consolidated length of consolidated trackway, which is the main route into the site. This is a view from within the site, looking southeast. Within the site, there are several areas of levelled and consolidated ground where former army camp buildings once stood. You can see the dividing fence line, and also various patches of scrub and trees along the eastern boundary. It's proposed that a new hedgerow would be planted along the western site boundary, and land in the south of the site would be used on a rotational basis so as to facilitate regular grazing. Such use can be managed through the installation of fencing as permitted development. No additional hard standings or other physical infrastructure are proposed as part of the application. This view shows the gateway into the southern half of the field, the application site, and the trees along the eastern boundary. All of the trees are to be retained. The key planning issues are set out in the report, and there are no updates to the report. The proposal is focused on addressing a recognised need for transit pitches for a temporary period, options for longer term provision being a matter that is being considered and addressed through the local plan process. The proposal is considered to be in general accordance with the development plan and with government planning policy, and that there are no material considerations warranting the determination of the application other than in accordance with the development plan. The recommendation is that planning permission be granted subject to the conditions set out in paragraph 13.1 of the report, conditions being proposed to regulate and restrict the use of the application site, to secure the implementation of a proposed biodiversity mitigation and net gain measures, and to secure post-development clearance of the application site. Various representations have been received, raising a number of issues, including site management and the operation of CCTV surveillance, but for the reasons set out in the report, no additional conditions are considered to be necessary. Naturally, I will be happy to address any questions, but that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much indeed, Hugh. So we have no highways matters in regard to this application, so we don't have any highways presentations. We've got no representations from members of the public on this, but we do have a view from the ward member, Councillor Jill Haynes. Councillor Haynes can't be with us today because she's on busy at another meeting, so her words are going to be read out. Could we hear from Councillor Haynes's words, please?
Okay.
Thank you, Jill.
This transit site was originally agreed as part of the organisation of the London Olympics in 2012, with Weymouth hosting the sailing. It was then for 1 year as a one-off. The planning has now been renewed 3 times for 3 years because there has not been an appropriate review of alternative sites, despite this being quoted as the reason that the planning would need to be extended for one last time at each renewal application. This is an entirely inappropriate location for a transit site. It is not in a sustainable location, providing no shops, schools or public transport for those who are referred to the site. It is in close proximity to our stable, permanent travellers site, and incomers can cause major disruption. It is also next door to a thriving trading estate, which means that the 24/7 security is an essential condition of the application to provide public confidence. We are now developing a new local plan, and it is essential that a review of appropriate transit sites and permanent sites for gypsies and travellers is included and agreed in that plan. Those new sites will need to be in sustainable locations going forward. I'm not going to object to the renewal of this application today, but the community should expect this to be the last renewal of a temporary site, and that during this 3-year period, applications are brought forward to provide alternative sustainable sites in Dorset for gypsies and travellers.
Thank you very much indeed. Good, and that's our only representation to this meeting today. Before I go to members' questions, I just would like to express my own view. It is disappointing that the predecessor councils didn't complete the development plan documents for gypsies and travellers across Dorset. This has been outstanding for a number of years, and it's been something that I have been pressing for in the predecessor councils for over a long period of time, and it has led to some a lot of interim decisions, such as this one, having to be made, and it would have been much better if we had managed to give people a degree of certainty. I'm very pleased that this will now be done as part of the local plan, but I have to say it's disappointing that it has taken this long for across all of the councils to do that piece of work. If I could then go to members' questions, I have Councillor Fry first.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Hugh, for your report there. I have a few questions. Firstly, please, the duration of the permission to do this. You say 3 years. It's actually only 2 years because it goes back to April last year. Is it possible to extend it by another year to make it a 4-year thing, which gives it a 3-year timescale? Because I am with you, Sherry, and the councillor, Jill, that this really needs a permanent resolution, and I don't think 2 years is long enough to find that time. So I think I would like to suggest that we take this for a total of 4 years, but it actually is only 3 years from now, which is what we're agreed on. The CCTV, the conditions, I absolutely support that, and that does need to be a condition that we, if approved, is put in place. It needs to be a robust system that operates and possibly monitored from the Dorset Council control room in Colleton Park. Hugh, you haven't mentioned the security officers on site. Can you please comment on that? There is a mention that there should be 2 per 20 once 5 caravans are there, or 2 caravans.
Thank you, Hugh. First of all, the duration of this application, it takes us up to the local plan, as I understand it.
Yes, Chair. But the permission is proposed to run until the 31st of August 2023. So it would authorise 3 years, three further years of 5-month usage, being this year, next year, and 2023, between the periods of the 1st of April and the 31st of August. Thank you.
So that should satisfy you, Councillor Fry.
Thank you. Yeah, happy with that so far.
Good. Thank you. CCTV.
The previous planning permissions have been granted subject to a requirement that a management plan be submitted and approved. One of those management plans provided for the installation and operation of CCTV cameras. The cameras that were approved under that scheme were specifically for monitoring activity on the roadways within the enterprise park. Not the use of the land as a caravan site itself. It's for monitoring of the accesses and activities into the enterprise park, not for the actual use of land as a caravan site. There hasn't as such been a specific requirement previously within the conditions of the planning permission that CCTV must be provided and must be operated. Dorset Council has the ability to erect and operate CCTV cameras as permitted development within the enterprise park, and as I understand it, is currently doing so. In my opinion, it is not necessary for CCTV cameras to be a requirement of a planning permission for the use of the application site as a caravan site for gypsies and travellers. If members disagree, then that is something that they should consider as to whether or not it would be necessary to refuse planning permission were that condition not to be imposed. In my view, it wouldn't be, and therefore it would be inappropriate to impose a condition requiring it. The fact there isn't a condition requiring it does not prevent the council from installing and operating CCTV cameras in accordance with its other statutory responsibilities, and indeed the council, as I understand it, is again operating CCTV cameras in the interests of security within this area.
Hugh, thank you for that. I would very much like, bearing in mind my previous occupation, I'd like to see CCTV covering certainly the road access and the entrances there, and the road up the enterprise park. I know this area very well from previous experience.
There is, as I understand, there is CCTV. Have I got that right, Hugh? On the road in the entrance, there is CCTV there.
Yes, Dorset Council, as I understand it, is currently operating 2 cameras that cover both the main roadways within the enterprise park. Right.
Thank you. And security?
Yes, the security officers on site, Hugh.
The proposal is for the site to be run as a local authority managed transit site. The management responsibility for the site would rest with the council's Gypsy and Traveller Liaison Officer. In my opinion, it is not necessary from a planning perspective for the site management arrangements to be submitted to and approved by the planning committee. The recommended conditions limit the use of the use of the site specifically to being a local authority managed transit site. As such, the site is exempt from the requirement for a caravan site licence. Were it to be operated other than in accordance, other than as a local authority transit site, there would be a requirement for a caravan site licence. Those licences being the documents that would normally specify management arrangements for caravan sites. In my view, again, it's not necessary to impose requirements on the planning permission for the use of this site for management. It's widely recognised that the successful operation of transit sites in part is a reflection on effective site management.
Right.
Site management, those responsible with site management need to be in a position where they can adapt their management to the use that they're operating. Historically, the management plans approved have set out staffing arrangements reflecting the level of activity on site, with if there is nobody on site, there being no staff presence at all. If up to 2 caravans are present, the Gypsy and Traveller Liaison Officer regularly visits the sites, and with more than 2 caravans, there is then a security presence on site. But those measures are provided by the council through the Gypsy and Traveller Liaison Officer, and I think are most appropriately managed in that way rather than by planning condition.
I would be inclined to agree with that. I must say, it seems to me that the Gypsy and Traveller Liaison Officer is our Dorset Council's expert in this area, and I think we can be confident that officer will know best how to manage this site. And so it seems to me it's stretching it to see that as a planning matter. But do you agree with that, Councillor? Are you comfortable with that?
Not very comfortable, because it's a bit like shutting the gate after the horse is gone if you're not careful on this sort of site, and it's been preemptive to take the appropriate steps to secure the welfare, safety and benefit of everybody there, particularly on the estate and the site itself. But I'll see what my colleagues, and I may come back to you on this one, Chair.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chair. I think just to reassure Councillor Fry, I think I share to a great degree his concerns regarding that security aspect. So I think that does need to be looked at by us rather than, you know, the Gypsy and Traveller Liaison Officer, with the greatest respect to him and his colleagues. My question actually is regarding the access itself and the physical characteristics of that. Hugh, could you go to the photograph of the gate into the site itself and the subsequent photo as well, please, if possible? Sorry to ask you to go through your presentation slides again.
Is the slides currently showing?
Yes.
No,
yes.
They are showing. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. So I'm looking at the. I'm obviously looking at the wrong screen.
No. Which slide was it you wanted, Councillor Cook?
It was the one where it was showing the gate and the view through the gate towards the actual site itself.
The photograph.
Yeah, that one, and the next one I think makes my what I'm going to say a little bit more visible. There's some puddles there, you know, quite large puddles. I appreciate that the site will be used between April and August, and this photograph was possibly taken in the wetter months. But given that the climate conditions cannot be predicted, is there any mitigation to the drainage on the site? Because it seems that if we're going to have up to 25 caravans and possibly a degree of travel along that exact part of the site, it's going to get chewed up pretty rapidly if it's in the condition that it is in at the moment. And I was wondering what mitigation there is planned or possibly in reserve to make sure that the access to the site is maintained? Because in your initial presentation you did say that there was no extra work to be done, and I would have thought that some at least hardcore going down, or if not tarmacking to the immediate entrance would be sensible, given the possible amount of traffic going in and out through there.
Thank you. Hugh, could you address the question of the water on the site?
All of the photographs shown were taken at the start of February, so as you say, in a relatively wet period, not falling within the months where the site is operational. I have visited the site in summer months previously. Unfortunately, the photographs that I took last August, I was unable to locate, but in my experience, when the site is operational, it isn't unusually wet or particularly churned by vehicles. Clearly, with any sort of vehicular and caravan use within a grassed field, there is potential for that to happen. That is usually managed by caravan site operators through a combination of sort of physical site management measures and rotation of areas used as pitches. The access way, although partly covered with grass and soil, is very firm. I'm not aware of difficulties getting vehicles in and out of the site along the access route, so I don't think it would be necessary to either require tarmacking or additional hardcore. The placement of additional hardcore, should it be needed, would be ancillary to the authorised use, and so the site manager would be able to do that without requiring planning permission.
I cast your minds back to Glastonbury of years gone by, in I think June or July, when people are absolutely covered in mud. Yeah, it's just something I would be happier if it were addressed at our stage, but I'll go by your recommendation.
Can I thank you very much, Councillor Cook. Can I just check you? The site has been in use for a number of summers, hasn't it?
It has. It was used in 2012, and then I think it's been used each summer since 2014.
Right.
During the periods and for slightly longer periods than currently proposed. There's no doubt that driving vehicles over a grass field does churn up the surface, and vehicles can get stuck. It hasn't proven to be an unmanageable problem.
Right.
That's not to say that vehicles don't get dirty and vehicles don't get stuck, but yeah, generally speaking, there are the access into the site is considered satisfactory.
Right.
The roadway on the tarmac side of the gate is not actually public highway. The roadway within the enterprise park is essentially a private road. So tracking mud and other materials out of the site onto this roadway isn't a matter that would be controlled by the highway authority, but is a matter that can be controlled by the council as the site operator.
Right. So what I think I hear you're saying is, while it's not perfect, it is satisfactory, and it has proved satisfactory in previous summers.
Yes, that's right.
Good. The other thing is we're giving permission for up to 25 caravans on this site. I think I understand that the expectation is that there would be, for the most part, fewer than 25 for most of the time.
That's right. The 25 is a cap, a limit. there will likely be periods within the 5 months when the site is operational that there are no caravans at all present for days and periods of days. At other times there may be a small number of caravans, and occasionally we may get to or near to the limit. But generally speaking, in my experience, when I've been out at the site and it's operational, there are normally only a small number of caravans present at any one time.
Okay, so that might help a bit. Councillor Cook, are you satisfied with that answer?
Yes, I think so, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. My question was around, I just wonder what consultation you've had with the kind of like infrastructure providers such as surgeries and schools, for instance, because I know when in other parts of Dorset they've had an influx of travellers, schools have been an enormous problem. So I was just asked about that. What have you had? Also, I see in 10.8 that the CCTV camera is broken. Or are we taking that we haven't had anything in writing and it's back up and working, or they're back up and working? And are they monitored cameras by the central monitoring point in Colleton Hall? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I just to, and I'm sure you won't mind me correcting you. I don't think we would refer to it as an influx of travellers. They are residents of Dorset. Could we talk first about the consultation with service providers such as schools? To what extent is that?
The consultations undertaken on the application are set out in section 10 of the report. The Education Department, I don't believe, were consulted, but education provision is now a matter that's covered under the Community Infrastructure Levy. As a use of land, this application is not SIL liable. The onus falls on the county as the local education authority to ensure that adequate places for education are available. It is difficult to assess need arising from a site where the occupation is variable and unknown, but no provision is being made as part of this application for additional educational provision. In terms of others consulted, the parish council and the highway authority were both consulted. Wessex Water were consulted and responded, indicating no objection. The environmental health officer was consulted, as were technical services, neither raised an objection. Waste services were consulted and noted that the intention is that waste would be removed by a skip operator, and therefore not the council's collection service. The police and crime prevention design officer was consulted and responded with a request for on-site security and for CCTV cameras, and the Dorset Council Spatial Policy and Implementation Team were consulted but didn't respond. Okay,
thank you very much. So, Councillor Andrews, does that satisfy you? I mean, I think the key point there was that as a use of land, this is not SIL liable, community infrastructure payment liable, and therefore, in terms of it, as a planning committee, we can't make any provision. I guess what we're being told here is that this is a Dorset Council site managed by Dorset Council's Gypsy liaison officer, Gypsy and Traveller liaison officer, and our schools, and we have to trust that we have to have confidence that Dorset Council's officers between the various departments will be managing the site and looking after the residents effectively. That seems to be pretty much the summary of it. I mean, I personally am confident that they know what they're doing, but are you?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just my second point on the CCTV.
Yes. So do you want to? You happy with the CCTV? We'll come back to the CCTV, I think, and the security, and just make sure that we've done everything we need to do. Councillor Jones.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wondered, do travellers actually have to book to come in? Do they have to get a licence? Do they make any type of payment towards emptying skips or anything like that? And the other thing, do we as an authority not have any obligation to have any water on the site or power on the site at all? And I do rather worry about emptying chemical toilets, and I don't know how that's been dealt with in the past. Thank you.
That's good questions. Thank you, Hugh. Do you know the answer to these questions, please?
Okay. In terms of water, water is available. There's a standpipe located adjacent to the gate, so drinking water is provided. The site is not served by mains drainage, and so connections have not been established for mains disposal of grey or foul water. However, when it's operational, there are portaloos provided on site with arrangements for the disposal of foul water through the portaloo contractor. As far as the CCTV management and operation is concerned, I honestly don't know the details of how that is provided and managed. So my advice to you is that I don't believe that it is a necessary requirement for the use that is being proposed as part of land use control. In terms of site management arrangements, again, these are operational matters which really rest with the site manager. But my understanding is that the site is generally locked, such that so that people staying at the site make contact with the council to arrange for access. I don't know about charging provisions. Councils can, if they choose to charge for transit pitches. I don't know what provisions have been made here.
That's helpful, and I think it would be fair to say, well, I agree, Councillor Jones, that these are important matters. They are not essentially planning considerations for us today. That the site is the site management is an operational matter for Dorset Council. Should we renew this permission? You know, we have to focus on what are our planning considerations here. Did you have anything? Are you happy with that reply, Carol, or have you something else to ask?
No, it's just I sometimes wish we could have a wraparound service so that we brought everything together to deal with everything, because education doesn't fall into that. There seems to be a different department for so many different things, and I just wish sometimes we could have a wraparound service so that if we're going to operate these sites, we do them well, and we have everything under one banner, as it were. But I appreciate the difficulties. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That was slightly supports the point that Councillor Haynes and I made at the beginning of this, that the predecessor councils were slow in sorting out our development plan documents, and that's one of the reasons why we're still looking at continuing to renew these temporary sites without giving any degree of certainty to the visitors to the sites and also to local people. And I think that's, as I say, it's disappointing, and I would agree with your sentiment. Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chair. Just check my camera's on. Yes, it's on. Hugh, point 10.8 in your report, the crime prevention advice, I'd like to ask to get the conditions in there that the CCTV at the entrance is maintained and is working at all times, please. And I note there a comment from the crime prevention officer that the security should be on site. It's existing for 5 units, but they suggest for 2. I would like to see it perhaps maintained at 5. In your report further down, you mentioned the fear of crime. Now, all aspects of society and the community can and do commit crime, but it's the fear of crime that can be as much as anything else. And I think those 2 steps will be measures that will reduce the fear of crime for those people and businesses in that area. So on the basis of that, I would like to propose adoption of this report, and I was happy to propose it.
Thank you very much indeed. So, Hugh, are we clear that we can add those or strengthen the conditions to add those 2 points that Councillor Fry has just given, that the CCTV at the entrance is operational, is working and operational?
For the reasons set out in the report, Chair, I think those conditions are going to be difficult.
Right.
If the committee wish to impose additional conditions, you need to be mindful of the requirements for them to be necessary, relevant to planning, relevant to the development to be permitted, enforceable, precise, and reasonable in all other respects. My own view is that it is not apparent, or at least it's not apparent to me, how, as the planning officer, I would be able to enforce a requirement that a CCTV camera is installed and operational.
Yes.
The camera could be located within the red edge planning application site, so its delivery could be reasonable from that perspective. But in terms of the reasonableness and enforceability, the question as to whether or not fear of crime is a material consideration, but court judgments indicate that the test is whether a development is in of itself a type that gives reasonable cause for fear of crime. In my opinion, this is not of that type.
So I'll have to disagree with Hugh on that one. This is a site that will cause and create the fear of crime. With years of experience, I can tell you that it does. Having spoken to the police yesterday, they are quite insistent that those conditions should be in. And as well, it is a relatively easy one to enforce, because are the cameras working and accessible? That is easy to prove. So I don't see that it's a challenging one for there, particularly just on the gateway, to observe who's going in and who's out. We're not looking at privacy matters here. It's a simple access point.
Okay.
Philip Crowser wants to come in, Sherry.
Yes, I've seen that. Thank you, Les. Hugh, did you want to comment on that when I invite our solicitor, Phil Crowser, to come in and comment now? I mean, I think we are being given some fairly firm advice by our planning officer here. And as always, committee, I do urge you to listen when we are advised by planning officers. Phil, would you like to comment, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to add to what Mr. Williams has been saying in terms of the conditions and the 5 tests, in order to impose a condition, you as members, if you wish to support that condition, need to be satisfied that those 5 tests are met, and you need to give the reasons why you think the condition should be imposed, having regard to those tests. And bearing in mind, as Mr. Williams said, we're looking at the type of site and the use of site in terms of whether a fear of crime is reasonable, and we can't look at the proposed occupiers of the site. It's whether this use of land is a use where which would create a fear of crime, and not the potential occupiers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Councillor Fry, may I pause that matter, because I have had Councillor Apothecary waiting to come in, and she might be going to say something different, and then we do need to nail down this question of security before we can progress on. But would you mind if I bring
Not at all. No, carry on, please do.
Thank you. Val.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand Councillor Fry's concerns. My concern actually is that if we install these cameras, you know, there's a danger of it all looking like a compound, which isn't. That's not very nice either for the occupants of this site. So what I was going to say is this is a transit site. You know, it's a 3 months occupancy. And whilst I would normally be fighting the corner of additional services for the occupants of this bit of land regarding schools and shops, etc., it is this transit site, so it doesn't really need the same requirements as a permanent site, and I'd be very happy to propose acceptance of this application.
Thank you very much. Members, we have had a very clear steer from our planning officer and from our solicitor that they are advising us that the conditions that are before us are probably as far as we can go with this, but I don't want to prevent you putting conditions with regard to these cameras, but we have been given a very clear advice that that's perhaps doesn't meet the 5 tests. So just I know that Councillor Fry would like to see that. Is there anybody else who wishes to support that point with the extra conditions? Or I've had a couple of people happy to second. Is anybody coming forward to say they would like to support Councillor Fry in pushing for this condition? I'm not seeing anything. Les, I think in the light of the advice we've been given, I think the mood of the meeting seems to be that we go forward with the conditions as they are, and because I'm not seeing anybody here coming forward to take a different view than that.
Chair, I think it's almost normal practice that most, not all, but most caravan sites have a camera at the entrance anyway to monitor entry and exit, and I don't see that we're asking anything different from that. Yeah. I would point out this is a transit site. By the nature of the people, they are mobile, they are transit, whereas people in permanent accommodation tend to be more responsible on occasion.
No, I understand your point, Councillor Fly, and you have made it at some length, but I'm not seeing support for that extra condition coming forward from the committee, and I have had a couple of people saying that they are prepared to propose and second as is.
Noted, thank you, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry. Councillor Cook, did you want to come in before I progress this matter?
Well, I did say at the beginning that after Councillor Fry had spoken the first time that I would be happy to support or to go with him, because again, I'm hearing the advice from the officers. However, there is a disconnect in my head between that and common sense. I think the users of the industrial park, the users of the business park, would feel a lot not safer, but more supported if it can be shown and that we are doing what we believe is the right thing to do to benefit both those using the site and those using the business park. I do speak from some experience. Yeah. We have a Gypsy and Traveller site in Shaftesbury, and there was a lot of concern before that went in.
Yes,
about the principle.
I take your point. Just to be clear, we're not saying that there will be no security on the site. there will be security. What we are saying, and that will be the managed by the Gypsy and Traveller Liaison Officer, whose job and who has the experience to do that. And there will be security on the site. There will be proper management of the site, and those are operational matters. What we're looking at today is what it is reasonable and proper for us to condition as part of the planning permission, and that's a different point. And the advice we're given is that to condition that a security camera should be operational at all time is out with the remit of a planning condition, because it's not reasonable and it's not enforceable, and it's not within the capability of a planning officer to be constantly checking to make sure that a camera is working. So please don't be thinking that we're suggesting for a moment that there will be no security. There will be proper management of this site as it has been done in the past. Phil Chrysler, do you want to come in, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick point on one of the comments you made. In terms of enforceability of a condition, it's whether it's possible to enforce the condition. Yes. If there are practical difficulties because of, for example, resourcing enforcement officers at the council, that doesn't make the condition unenforceable. I just wanted to make that clear to members. And also, as I said a moment ago, if Councillor Fry's proposal is indeed seconded by Councillor Cook, then on the basis of the additional conditions, then they will need to give reasons for imposing those conditions, which are proper planning reasons, before the matter goes to the vote. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, can we look? I've had a proposer and a seconder for these conditions. Can you give me some planning conditions, please? Some planning reasons why you wish to add this extra security. So firm wording as to what this condition should say and what your planning reasons are, please. And let's see if the committee is able to support you. Councillor Fry.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the report at the moment, trying to pick the words out from there, but I would need some guidance and some help on those words. But I think for the prevention of crime and disorder of the community in that area is what I'm looking for. Hannah, are you listening on this meeting?
Sorry?
Is Hannah in on this meeting? Because I could do with some more words there.
Yes. Senior Planning Officer Hannah Smith, if you could, are you there to give some advice, some appropriate wording here?
We can consider a condition that's worded to require CCTV, but just to be clear on the reason, is that for crime prevention reasons? Because as Phil, our senior solicitor's already mentioned, it has to be relevant to the use of this site and the land. Yes. So wider concerns in the area about crime wouldn't be sufficiently justified to require a condition on this site. It's not a site, it's not a use that generates any concern about crime in its own right. So therefore it's not considered sort of reasonable to attach it. So I think we need to be careful about how we frame a condition if we are going to require one. And I'm still not hearing a planning reason why we should attach it at this point, Chair. No. Sorry.
No, thank you. Neither am I. That's right. Try again, Councillor Fry.
I think on that basis, go on.
Sorry, I think reading paragraph 10.8, it says responding, noting, understanding that CCTV camera on an entry point is not working and that it was only a condition of planning for 1 year. Can we not use the fact that it has been a condition of planning in the past to renew it on this occasion? Maybe Hannah or
I wouldn't say that was good grounds to require it now, because I think that the reasoning before probably wasn't that sound. So I don't think we want to go forward with something that in hindsight probably wasn't the right thing to attach at that point in time, and raise expectations in terms of what we can actually realistically require on this site.
Okay.
It doesn't stop the council, if they want to have CCTV, from having it there, and I think the chair's made that point really clearly. It's just whether we should be requiring this through a planning condition on this use of the site.
Chair, on the basis of the conversation I've heard from Hannah and Phil, and that, then I'll withdraw that suggestion, that condition.
That's very, very, very helpful. Thank you very much. And just to reiterate, nobody should interpret this discussion as suggesting in any way that the site will not be properly managed and there won't be the necessary security. It's just that that will come from a different route than through the planning committee. That we have every confidence that the Gypsy and Traveller Liaison Officer knows her job. Will be doing that, doing everything that is necessary. I'm returning then to the recommendation as it was put to us in the report, and the original proposer was
myself. That's right.
What it was you, Councillor Fry. Are you prepared to propose as is?
Yes. Right.
And can I have a seconder?
I think Councillor Andrews did.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. You did. And I have a proposer, Councillor Fry, proposer, a seconder, Councillor Andrews. I'm now going to put this matter to a vote. And as I call your name, can you yet again indicate that you heard the whole debate and that how you would like to vote? Councillor Andrews?
For.
Councillor, and did you hear the whole debate? Yeah.
Yes, I heard the whole debate.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I have to ask. Councillor Cook?
For, present throughout.
Councillor Fry?
For, present throughout.
Councillor Hall?
For, present throughout.
Councillor Heatley?
I heard the whole debate. For.
Thank you. Councillor Jones?
For, present throughout.
Councillor Parker?
For, and I heard everything.
Councillor Penfold?
For, and I was present throughout.
Councillor Potterbury?
For and present throughout.
Councillor Rideout?
For and present throughout.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. And that is then carried. And thank you very much, members, for that was a slightly knotty problem, but I think you tried very hard to get a satisfactory outcome there to that planning application. So thank you for that discussion. We move on then to agenda item 5E. This is to replace the boundary fence at St Osmond's Middle School in Dorchester. And this application is going to be presented by Hannah Smith. Annabelle Cox, who wrote the report, is not able to be with us today. Hannah Smith, Annabelle's report, if you would, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just checking you can see the report.
Yes, indeed.
Displayed. Yes, excellent. Thank you. So the proposal is to replace the existing chain link fence, which exists around the site in various forms, with a new, more modern fence and also gates. The fence would be a maximum of 2.4 metres in height, and also in sections it would be 1.8 metres to respond to concerns that have been raised about amenity impacts. So the site is located within the development boundary of Dorchester in the southeast area within the settlement. There's no specific constraints that relate to the sites. It's not in a conservation area and it's not close by to any listed buildings. This is the site's location within the settlement. You can see it's bound by residential developments on most sides. Here's some photographs of the existing arrangement around the perimeter of the site. You can see there's some hedgerow and existing trees, and all the trees would be retained through this application, and there's a condition that would ensure that they were safeguarded through the construction phase. some more pictures here of the existing arrangement of the fence. You can see the neighbour here, 7-3 Barnes Way. The applicant has spoken to the resident here, and there is a specific measure that's been agreed around the boundary of this property, because it to make the enclosure look slightly less overbearing, with the inclusion of trellis, which I'll show you in a bit. So this site plan here shows the perimeter of the site, and the blue line, which runs around the majority of the site, shows the 2.4 metre high fence and where it's proposed around the school. The red dots that you can see that aren't numbered, but the sort of lighter coloured red dots, show where there would be wildlife access holes around the fence to allow wildlife to move through the site, and that was an ecology requirement that was incorporated into the design of the fence. You can see the red highlighted area along Barnes Way and Standfast Walk, which shows raised areas for wildlife, and the green, just turn the pointer on, the green line along here, along Standfast Walk, represents a reduction in the height of the fence along here, because there were concerns that the 2.4 metre high fence in close proximity to these residential properties here would be slightly overbearing when viewed from their windows. I'll show you a photograph in a minute of this. And you can also see the light blue section here along 7B Barnes Way, which indicates an area where there'd be trellis on top of the fence to lessen the impact on this neighbouring property here. That's just an idea of what the fence would look like, so you'll still be able to see through it. So that sort of sense of openness you get across the site, and the areas of grass and the playing fields will still be visible through this fence. So it's not a sort of an enclosure that would be too prominent in that respect. It would be finished in green, so this is some typical elevations of the fence that would surround the site. This is an indication of what it would look like next to the neighbour in 7B Barnes Way. So there'd be the existing fence with some trellis placed on top, so that it's more visually pleasing from the neighbour's property. So this is where we did have some objections from the residents opposite here. As you can see, the existing fence is quite high up to the boundary, but it's not quite as tall as what would replace it. The 2.4 metre high fence was considered to be slightly overbearing, because it would come up to the first floor windows, so the outlook would be just of the fence. So the proposal is to move the fence back slightly for half a metre from the edge of the pavement, and in this location it would only be 1.8 metres high, the fence. There would be another fence at the bottom of the slope to ensure that the school site was secure. This is some typical gates that would be included within the design. And this is another section of the fence showing some of what the gates would look like. So they're metal. So as mentioned, there's an ARB method statement to ensure that the existing trees would be retained within the site. And there's a condition that the development has to adhere to the measures within the MS. So the main planning considerations in this case is the amenity of residents in the area. Officers consider that this would be safeguarded to the levels of amenity due to the design changes, and also the fact that the fence is not solid in its appearance. In terms of highway safety, the fence was proposed to go right up to the carriageway in some locations. At the request of the highway officer, the fence will be set back at least 500 millimetres from the edge of the highway to ensure that there's adequate visibility for vehicles and also pedestrians. In terms of secure design, at the moment the fence is not very secure in some places around the site, and for Ofsted and other reasons there does need to be a secure boundary around the school site for safeguarding reasons. In terms of landscaping and tree protection, trees would be protected. The Town Council now raised no objection to the application, and neither does the local ward member, but they have suggested a landscaping condition to incorporate some soft landscaping. The applicant has no objection to this. So the application is recommended to be granted subject to conditions, and also the inclusion in line with the Town Council's comments of a soft landscaping condition. This would require a degree of planting, but not around, it would have to be proportionate, so not around the whole of the site, because it does have an open feel at the moment, but it would allow for some extra planting to be secured through the development. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Hannah. So there are no highway concerns here, so no presentation from the highway officers. We're going to hear now first from Dorchester Town Council, and then from the agent Kendall Kingscott Limited. So Jill, if you're still with us to do our reading, could we hear from Dorchester Town Council first?
Certainly. So this is from Councillor Robin Potter of Dorchester Town Council. The Town Council is grateful to the applicant for the amendments to the previous application and now has no objection to the proposal, though we would request some appropriate planting to help soften the impact of the fencing on neighbouring footpaths and residents. And that's the end of that one.
Thank you.
And do you want me to go on and read for the agent?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this is from Alex Alderton of Kendall Kingscott Limited. The application is for the installation of a boundary fence to the school site to address the safeguarding requirements and responsibilities of the school. The project is an Education, Skills and Funding Agency, ESFA, funded project through the Condition Improvement Fund, CIF. As part of the funding application, the need was demonstrated in order to secure funding. Failure to obtain planning permission and make progress is presently at risk of losing funding for the above. Therefore, time is now of the essence. The complete lack of a secure boundary to the front of the academy, including inadequate and poor fences and gates to the perimeters of the site, is such that an entirely new physical barrier in the form of fences and pedestrian and vehicular gates are required to prevent breaches of the academy's boundaries. The safeguarding is a potential contravention of Regulation 25 of Part 5 of the Education Independent School Standards England Regulations 2014, which require that there are appropriate arrangements for providing outside space for pupils to play safely. At present, the school require a large contingent of staff to take station at their boundaries to keep pupils on site and prevent members of the public entering site at break times. This is extremely inefficient and not wholly effective. This also only partially addresses the issue, as it provides no protection outside of timetabled break periods. The application has been revised since initial submission in keeping with the comments raised by stakeholders. These are as follows: provision of wildlife passage at low level to gates and fencing, setting back of fencing 500 millimetres from any public highway and alternate hanging of gate to the north, reduction in height and revision of fencing route to the north of the site to address neighbour concerns. With regard to the last point of neighbours raised concerns via the ward councillors and directly through contact with myself regarding the height of fencing in the immediate proximity of the front elevations and windows to their properties, we have fully cooperated with this and proposed to match the existing 1990s fencing height, which is to be replaced due to dilapidation, and provide a secondary fencing within the site to maintain the level of security achieved by a 2.4 metre height fence. We understand the planning officer handling the case has recommended the application for approval, and that we also have the support of a ward councillor following the revisions to the application. We trust this with the above will resolve the matter favourably. And that's the end of comments.
That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Jill. Right, so member questions. Councillor Fry, is this a question?
No, it's to propose it there.
You would like to propose it. Are you proposing it with the addition of the extra landscaping condition, soft landscaping condition that's on the screen?
Yes, please.
Yes, good. And Councillor Andrews is indicating, would you like to say whether or not you'd like to propose, so we have it for the record? Second.
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second.
With the extra condition.
With the extra, as I put on the screen.
That's lovely. Before I put this to the vote, then I will just check if there's any other member who has any question or comment to make. I don't want to rush us, but if not, then I'm delighted to say we will move straight to the vote on this one, please. And when I call your name, the usual yes and yes, or no and no. So Councillor Andrews.
Yes, and I've heard the whole debate.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
For, present throughout.
Councillor Fry.
For, present throughout.
Councillor Hall.
Yes and yes.
Councillor Heatley.
For and present throughout.
Councillor Jones.
For and present throughout.
Councillor Parker.
For, and I heard everything.
Thank you. Councillor Penfold.
For and present throughout.
Councillor Apothecary.
For and present throughout.
Councillor Rideout.
For and present throughout.
That's excellent. Thank you very much, members. That's that boundary fence nicely sorted out. Good. Moving on then to our next agenda item, which is 5F, and this is to erect a single-storey rear extension at 54 West Street in Fontmell Magna. This application is before the committee in part because in the interest of transparency, because the applicant works for Dorset Council. The planning officer, Jenny Roberts, is going to present this one, I think.
Yes, hello.
Lovely. Hello, welcome, Jenny. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Right. This application is located within the conservation area of the village of Fontmell Magna. It relates to a semi-detached.
Jenny, sorry, your presentation's not showing it on the
screen.
Oh,
is it not? Sorry.
Sorry.
Well,
no, I knew there'd be something I forgot.
Yes. Share your screen.
Right. Hopefully. Oh, which one it? Oh, this is where I find it's on the wrong screen because it hasn't given me the option to. Maybe
take your time. That's all right. We know that these things take a little bit. That's it. You're there. Lovely.
You can see it. Oh, fabulous. Right. Yeah. So this application is located. The site is located within Fontmell Magna Conservation Area. It is a semi-detached cottage, which is within the red line. This is the aerial photograph. It is located adjacent to the village primary school, and it's this property here. And again, here's the site plan, and it relates to a single-storey extension, which is this section here. The dwelling has an existing flat fiberglass roofed single-storey extension to the rear, which is as seen here. And this application proposes the addition of a further single-storey brick-built extension behind it, measuring approximately 5 metres. The existing and proposed extensions will be covered with a tile, clay tile pitched roof. These are the existing floor plans. There are no changes proposed to the first floor plans at all, so that will remain as is. And the proposed extension will provide this extra section here. There is going to be an additional bedroom provided, and then the internal rearrangement will be as you can see here. This is a view of the cottage from the street. You can see the existing fiberglass flat roofed extension here, just above the boundary wall with the school. A few more photographs here, just from slightly different vantage points from within the car park. You can see the neighbouring properties, two-storey rear extension here, and there's also a single-storey extension on the neighbour's side. Again, see more clearly here. This is the conservatory of the neighbour, so there are no windows on this side. The extension is to project approximately 2 metres beyond this single-storey extension. You can see where the footings were originally starting to be dug, and it will come in line roughly with that. Again, some more photographs just from slightly different vantage points. The two main planning matters for consideration are the impact on the design and of the design on the conservation area and residential amenity. The parish council has objected to the application. It is concerned that the proposal might be contrary to neighbourhood plan policy FM9, which relates to building design. It objects to the development, stating that the proposed extension is large in relation to the original building. Whilst the proposed extension will result in a long single-storey linear projection from the rear of the original dwelling house, if I go back to the plans so that you can see those. Here, so yeah, this is existing just for information, and then it will result in a longer extension here. The proposed extension will actually only project approximately 2 metres beyond the neighbour's single-storey extension, which also has a large 2-storey projection, which, as can be seen, it projects quite a bit further than the application property. Seen in this context, the proposal does not appear out of character with its surroundings. It is considered that the addition of the pitched roof to the existing extension and the use of quality materials, which are to be conditioned as part of any planning permission, actually serve to enhance the character and appearance of the conservation area. The neighbourhood plan has a table of appropriate building materials for building projects in the village. Brick and clay tile, which are proposed for the extension, accord with the requirements of the table. The parish council has pointed out that the main 2-storey part of the building has brick walls with flint banding, and the proposed extension does not. However, the existing extension does not have flint banding either. In any case, it is considered that such high-level architectural detailing is not necessary for a modest, diminutive single-storey rear extension, much of which will not be visible from public land due to its positioning behind the school wall and it being set down below the existing ground level. Officers consider that the design of the proposal respects the character of the area in terms of scale, form, materials and layout. Officers also consider that the pitched roof over the existing flat roof extension is an enhancement. Whilst the parish council considers that the proposal is too large and contrary to policy FM9 of the neighbourhood plan, officers consider the extension is of a suitable scale and meets these requirements. In terms of residential amenity, the proposed extension, as we've seen, projects approximately 2 metres past the end of the neighbour's conservatory, which has no glazing on the elevation which is facing into the application site. Due to the compass positioning, this it will face towards the east elevation of the neighbour's conservatory. A very small amount of early morning summer sunshine might be lost to the roof and rear windows of the neighbour's conservatory, but this is not considered to be unduly harmful to the residential amenity of the neighbouring property. So due to its modest size, positioning and single-storey nature, it is considered that the proposed extension will have an acceptable impact upon neighbouring amenity. So the conclusion is that there are no material considerations which warrant refusal of this application, and it is recommended that planning permission is granted subject to conditions.
Thank you very much indeed. Jenny, stay with us. We're going to hear now from the representations from Fontmell Magna Parish Council, if we could please, Jill.
Yes, certainly. Okay, so this is from Councillor Michael Humphreys of Fontmill Magna Parish Council against the application. The Parish Council considers that the revised elevations seem to have responded to some of the criticism of the original elevations, and the pitched roof line may now comply with policy Fontmill Magna Neighbourhood Plan FMNP FM7, conservation area and locally imported features. It is noted that the drawings of the original elevations have been removed from the Dorset Council website, making comparison difficult. However, it is not clear whether the planned parking space has been withdrawn, which would conflict with policy FM7, and there is no reference to any points raised as conflicts with policy FM9 of the FMNP. FMNP policy FM9 building design states, new construction and alteration to buildings should respect the local rural character of the area in terms of scale, form, materials and layout, with an appropriate level of detailing to add interest and reinforce local character. The Parish Council considers that the revised building design may not comply with policy FM9 in that the proposed extension at 4.7 metres times 4.1 metre is large in relation to the original building. The space between the end of the proposed extension and the west wall will be very narrow for meaningful access to the garden. The space between the extension and the timber-clad wall of number 55 West Street at 300mm will leave little room for maintenance for either the applicant or for the neighbouring property. The Parish Council therefore continues to object to this application. As a footnote, the Parish Council is concerned that soil has been dug out from the base of the school wall, exposing its foundations and possibly making it vulnerable to potential collapse in poor weather. Perhaps the applicants could be requested to reinstate this soil. And that's the end of the comments.
Good. Thank you very much. Members, have you any questions on this application? I'm seeing nothing coming forward at all. Is anybody out there? Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Reliable. What is your question?
Well, it's not really a question, Councillor. It's I would like to propose this application as there's no material considerations to be taken into account.
I'm very grateful for that. I can't see who was next because you're coming in thick and fast now. I think it was Councillor Fry next.
I'm happy to second this, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Apothecary, do you have some comment to make?
I'm happy to third it.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, if nobody else has any comment that they want to make on this application, we can move straight for the vote. I'll just give you a second. No, I'm seeing nothing coming through on this one then. So I will then call your name, and as you're now getting used to your dual answer. So Councillor Andrews.
For, present throughout.
Councillor Cook.
For, present throughout.
Councillor Fry.
For, present throughout.
Councillor Hall.
For and present throughout.
Councillor Jones.
For and present throughout. You've missed Councillor Heatley.
Councillor Heatley is not participating in this event, in this application, because he has declared an interest. Councillor Parker.
For, and I heard everything.
Councillor Penfold.
For and present throughout.
Councillor Apothecary.
For and present throughout.
Councillor Rideout.
For and present throughout.
Good, thank you very much. Well, that was a long meeting. Thank you very much indeed to everyone who was participating and to anybody who's still listening. I feel reasonably confident to say that anybody listening to this meeting will know that you as the planning committee have delved into each of these applications with great diligence and in some detail, and you've pushed it hard to make sure that you've got a thorough understanding, and I think that's what people would expect of their planning committee. So I think it feels like a good day's work to me. So thank you very much indeed, and see you all in a month's time. Thank you very much. I'm closing the meeting at 15:34. Thank you.
Thanks, Cherry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cherry. I was going to ask if we had any results of any appeals that we could share.